Hello everyone, this is Diane, and I am here today with my completed final 3 Shabby journals. I listed 3 yesterday, and I worked and finished these up, and now they are ready to go in the shop. When you see this video, they will be in the shop. When I say yesterday, I mean Tuesday. I'm filming this on Wednesday. I don't even know when I'm going to put the video up because I don't have them listed in the shop yet. But none of that is relevant. What is relevant is when you see the video, these will be in the shop. So let's go through them. Once again, I used Blue Fern Studios Tattered Walls cardstock, thick, heavy cardstock for the covers. And it's very shabby looking, kind of grungy. But I leaned more toward shabby chic with the embellishments and pockets than grunge. But I love the way this looks. I just love the grungy, shabby look. I used one of these book plates again, and I just took a piece of cardstock. It's got some yellowish green effects in it, and corner punched it and used it as a backdrop, and I put in the word wonderful. And there's a vintage book plate with a Renoir painting on it. And I did a video where I did my wax seals with the lace and the book plate and all of that. Each book has something similar to that. These have all the same pages that the previous 3 journals had. But if you didn't see that, I'll just go into a little bit of detail on this one, and then we'll go through the other 2 more quickly. This is a billhead paper ledger. It was on a tablet. I got a box of these tablets at a flea market. I don't know how old it is. Probably from at least the 50s or 60s, I'm guessing. There's some eyelet and little soft pink fiber there. This is a letter that was written in Dutch, and it's dated 1952, and it's on a thin airmail type of paper where they would write the letter in very, very tiny script, and of course it's in Dutch, so I can't read it, and then fold it all up into the envelope. So it's letter and envelope all in one. The stamp is printed right on it, and there's the address. They were writing to their daughter in New York who was going to college, and she ended up marrying a boy she met here, and they lived not too far from where I live. This is a record book page. You can see the number here, and I just put some lace on the edge. There, the digitals that I used for pages. I mentioned in the other video that I used digitals, both pages and ephemera elements, that I already had printed, trying to reduce my stock of stuff that I have around. When I get a new digital, I just want to print it. I want to see it, so I want to print it. So I'm not doing that anymore, but I used to, and I have a bunch of videos, digitals printed. Anyway, so I used wallpaper digitals that I already had printed, and the only printing I did was to print on the backs of all of the wallpaper pages that I had. So I believe this is from Tailor Made Journals. She has a lot of wallpaper sets, and that's one of them. And this is hers also, and this is from a set of paper. It's not wallpaper. It's called French Roast Coffee Dyed something. But it's got the French Roast Coffee dyed paper, and then these really beautiful designs that she overlaid, and I love it. It's a nice neutral paper digital set. Anyway, we have some crochet here and a little piece of chiffon that I tied into a bow. Here's another vintage letter dated 1946 in Athens, Pennsylvania, and it came from Japan. It says returned to sender, service suspended, so that's why it ended up back in Athens. There was nothing inside it. It was just an envelope, and I covered this little tag with fabric with some bees on it and made a little cardstock tab with an eyelet. I cut this little cardstock piece 3/4 of an inch by, I think it was 1.5 inches something like that. Maybe it was a little longer than that. Yeah, I think it had to be longer than that. But anyway, it's only 3/4 of an inch wide. Here's some vintage music and a mint green cotton lace and a fussy cut. And the lace wraps around here to cover this, decorate this pocket. This, and I also pulled some tags and elements that I had already decorated and created, and they were in my handmade ephemera stash. So I used some of those. This is one of them. And this is a digital. Here's an embroidered piece with a little bit of a turquoise velvet ribbon. This isn't a wallpaper digital, but it was a pretty floral patterned digital that I had printed, so I did use a couple of those. I still have more wallpaper digitals printed, but some of them were just too bright and just not the right colors for these journals, so I did use some of these other papers that I had. This is a little scrap of an embroidered tablecloth, and I just added some fabric and another piece of embroidery there. And we did this collage tag, or similar ones, on a video with a chenille tab. It's a little book, just a little page from a novel. Today is yours. Just put that little digital on for journaling. This is one of the rice paper pages that came on that document. It was a lot of pages of document that was folded up. You can see it was just kind of rolled up. And maybe I'll see the date. Oh, this is 1914 is the latest date written here. Some of the pages, some of the journals have the rice paper pages and some have just regular paper pages, but they're all very, very old. This tab has eyelet and a little piece of embroidered trim. This is just another of the floral papers. French roast paper. And then I also used some ephemera images from Eclectic Eggplant, and they're called grunge ephemera, something like that. But there's just a lot of journal cards, and they just look very distressed, and I love them. Put a chiffon ruffle there. This is some handmade paper and another little digital that I tucked in there. A vintage ledger and some fabric. And this is a wallpaper page from TaylorMade Journals. I put an eyelet pocket on it and then a piece of crochet that I wrapped around there and sewed it on. This is a tag that I made before Christmas. This page, my printer sometimes pulls the pages out into the printer. I don't know, it does it wrong, and so it cuts off a little bit of one edge of the design and then it leaves a white. Usually not this much, but I didn't want to cut that off, so I just added a piece of scrapbook paper, and I really think it looks nice there like that. Makes me mad though when my printer does that. That's a digital photo of one that I have, and this is wallpaper on a tag. It's a pretty simple way to embellish a tag. Handmade paper, and there's one of my little embosslet embellishment pieces. This is from a book about antique furniture, and the book itself was vintage. Just put a little cluster there and a digital tag. There's a sheer piece of fabric with embroidery on it here as a pocket, fabric tab, and an embossed tag out of cardstock, which I then covered with a scrap of coffee dyed paper, and there's a vintage piece of ledger there. You can see the holes where it was bound into this stack of papers for the document. This little cluster has a bulb pin and a button on it. There's a tiny little Tim Holtz paper clip holding this digital button card. And this is another tag that I made before Christmas. These two tags that I mentioned before Christmas were tags that I made inspired by Nancy and her series of Christmas tags that she was doing. This one has acetate on top, embossed acetate at that. This pocket, fabric pocket, wraps around, and I just put little tiny skinny tags in these wraparound pieces. And this is a tag that I made a long time ago with some Tim Holtz stamps. Well, that's a Tim Holtz stamp. That's a Simplicity stamp. Wallpaper, another of the grunge ephemera pieces. And there's a really beautiful lace pocket here. And this is a piece of ephemera that someone made for me and gave me in a Happy Mail. And I thought this was a really good journal to put it in. It's got all kinds of elements on it. There's a button, there's some beading on this little mesh piece or tool. Just something sheer. It's just really pretty. And I think it looks nice tucked into this lace pocket. You can see the beading poking out right there. And this is just a cut off piece of this paper and another little piece of the embosslet. And I made this tag with book page, old book page and sheet on a tag. Added a little doily and a pretty little lemon yellow button. I'm just gonna glue this. I sewed the sheet to the tag, but the corners where the stitches didn't tack it down pop up when you insert it into the pocket. So I want to remedy that. And now let's quickly look at, and it's tied with this pretty green, sorry. Let's look at the other two. This one, I'll just call this one Carte Postale because I did not put a word on this. I wanted to use one of these. I got a bunch of jewelry stuff in a bag at the flea market. I think that's where I got these. There's another one that just has a faceted, it's supposed to look like a crystal or something, but it's clearly plastic. But it's the same flower. But anyway, it's not a pin. It had a little piece of metal on the back of it, and I don't know what it was supposed to attach to. But I just glued it on the front. So I hope that you like this element. It's kind of funky, but I like it with the silver and then the gray blue back here and an old crochet doily. There's the book plate with the wax seal. I poured the wax on and the wax just kind of formed itself into the shape that was between these two flowers, which I thought was kind of fun. All the same elements. There's the fabric tag and another vintage postcard or envelope. This is from 1920. This is a tag that was in my stash. It's just a tag that I made out of white cardstock and put a napkin on it and a little stamped piece at the bottom. Oops. Stuck to some glue there. I love this old vintage sheet. This is one of my wallpapers, but it's a digital. Here's a little journaling card that was in my stash when I was playing with my new wax seal set. Here's another rice paper page. You can see it's kind of torn up here where it was removed. But I like that look. It's got a partial list of personal property for this person. This is an Amity Bloom digital tag, and I put on one of the tabs that I made. Another digital photo and a wallpaper tag. Napkin Mod Podge tag. All kinds of tags in here, and here is a textured embossed tag. Collaged with chenille. This is a little booklet. This has been in my stash for a long time. It's a Mrs. Coggs image there. This is some pink tulle that I ruffled up on the edge, and some fabric. Piece of vintage wallpaper on a tag. And another lace pocket. This is an image from a book, and I created a card with it, with a little piece of Edith Holden text from one of her books. And I think that's a scrap of a vintage wallpaper digital behind it. You can barely see it though. And then in the back pocket we have another tag made with a sheet and some lace and that pretty little vintage embellishment. So this one is called Carte Postale. And the last one is called Living. It's got the same pretty green sari as the first one. I wanted to pick up this tealy turquoisey color here, so this color was a little bit bright. It was in my scraps, so I put some distress ink on it, and I think it made it look perfect with that, and stamped a little bit of light script on the background and punched it with a corner punch. Another bee fabric, but this one is blue. And this is written in, I think it might be Swedish, 1974. This is from a vintage tablecloth. Little scrap of fabric and a tiny little embroidered piece. This is wallpaper here, right on the back. Now this might have been the cover page of that document, and so it was folded around all the other pages and it was cracked right here. So I taped some genuine vintage cellophane that I had pulled off of something. I have an envelope full of little pieces of old cellophane tape, and I just glued it on there with my art glitter glue. It dries clear so you can't really see the glue there, and I put another piece on the back. This part I left. It's just a little ragged, but I like that. So just so you're aware, this is an old paper. This is one of my wallpapers that I have, but that's a digital. I'm not sure if this postcard is still in my shop. I made a digital with that postcard. Well, this is the digital, but I don't know if it's still in there. But I do have some postcard digitals. That's another of my wallpapers, but this is the real thing. Another Amity Bloom wallpaper tag, but it's a digital. Here's the other side of that document paper. You can see how ragged it is. Seneca County Surrogate's Court in the matter of the personal estate of Jesse Euchre, deceased, inventory, filed 191. So it's in the 1910s. They didn't fill that in, but it's in the 1910s. There's a little piece of a vintage linen here, and chenille, and some vintage daisy trim. Wallpaper. And here's a collaged card. I had made enough of these collage cards to go in all the journals, but then after I got them all filled, I saw them sitting here, so they didn't get put in. And I went through them to find a place for them, but I liked what was already in them, so I'm saving them for future journals. But this one did need something in this, so it got one. And that's all of them. So in this release, we have Living with the seafoam sari silk. We have Carte Postale with the silvery gray seam binding. And put this back in now that the glue's dry. And we have Wonderful with the seafoam. Sorry. So when you see this video, as I said, these are listed in my shop. You can click on the link underneath the description under this video, and it will take you right to my shop, and you can see if these are still there, and you can check out the digitals that are there if you're interested in those. Thank you very, very much for your attention, and I really, really appreciate all of you. I appreciate those of you who enjoy sending me happy mails. I use some of the elements in these journals, and I just received a happy mail yesterday that's just full of wonderful vintage items that I'm excited to use. And oh, don't get me wrong, I don't need a lot of stuff. I'm destashing and trying to minimize what I keep in stock, but I always like getting I always do, you know? You do too, right? Especially the vintage stuff. I just love it. So anyway, that's enough rambling. Thank you so much for being my viewers and subscribers. If you're not subscribed, please do subscribe. I will see you in the next video. Have a creative day today. Bye-bye.